Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to my Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Thank you.
Welcome to the Party Pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 157. I have Adam Dubove on. This is his second time on the forum. He's run for office in Argentina. He's been active and he's written for the Pan Am Post and a few other publications and InfoBay. We're going to talk about Milei and his Javier Milei and his first couple months in the presidency now. How are you, Adam?
Hey, how are you, Chris? Happy to be back here.
Yeah. So, a good start is, are you more optimistic about Milei now or less optimistic about Milei now? I mean, what have you seen since the last time we talked?
Well, I'm much more optimistic since the last time we talked. I don't remember right now if we talked after the primaries or after the general election, but I'm going to say that I was not expecting from Milei and his team to be so focused on political strategy, confronting with opposition leaders, confronting with all what he has been doing during the campaign, but one would have thought that after gaining office, after taking the presidency, he would moderate his views or he would be more open to negotiations, and particularly with the results that he needed the support from this center-right traditional conservative party, Juntos por el Cambio. So it really surprised me for good reasons that Javier Milei hasn't slowed down his movement towards against the political case, and he has been deploying a very intense agenda and generating a lot of conversation that has put him on the center of the spotlight. He has been dominating the agenda and the press agenda. So I'm really optimistic about what's going to be the next 4 years for Argentina.
Yeah, it sounds like it's really great. We talked, the primary had happened, but we'd not gotten to the second or third round of voting last time we talked. So really, I think we might have been a little pessimistic after the second round of voting because Milei really didn't gain anything, but Massa gained a lot. But now, he got the endorsement of Bullrich, and now Milei's in there, and yeah, it seems like he's really knows what he's doing. It's that's great to know. What do you think is and can you tell us a little bit about what does he have? Who does he have working with him in the legislature? Who's on his side and how are they going to help him out? I mean, seats in the legislature and stuff like that.
So yes, one of the weakest points for Javier Milei's party is that because of the results in the general election, he has a very low number of representatives in Congress, only 38 deputies or representatives and only 7 senators. So he sent this bill to Congress called Ley Bases, or the Bases Act, which is a really large omnibus bill which attempts to deregulate the economy and implement really deep reforms in different industries. So in that, when he sent to the Congress this bill, we were able to see the dynamics of the different legislative forces. And on the one side, there is La Libertad Avanza, Javier Milei's party, which has received a strong support from PRO, which is one of the parties that formed this center-right conservative coalition. And on the other hand, we have the left wing, the radical left wing, which only has like 3 or 4 representatives, and the Kirchneristas, the Peronists, who are about 100 lawmakers. So
the Peronistas are represented by Unión por la Patria, or Union for the Homeland, right?
Right. Yes, Unión por la Patria is the name of the legislative bloc. So if we add the left wing legislators and the Peronistas, they have around 104 representatives, and in the middle there is a group of really made in the moment coalition called Hacemos, like we are doing, which they presented themselves as a collaborative opposition, that they were willing to talk with the government, to engage in dialogue and in negotiations. But when the action came and they had to vote, they voted for positive for the law in general. But then when they had to vote every single article, they started voting against it. So what was once thought that it was this coalition would at least support some of Milei's measures, they started to vote against it. So now the scenario is much open. It's not that clear that Milei will be able to reach a majority until 2025, when there are new legislative elections. But the speed of the political events over the last months have been so fast, and so there have been a lot of plot twists. So I don't know what will happen next 2 years, but from today I can say that I don't see a viable legislative coalition that would support Milei's reforms.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, we've got these. As you pointed out, there's the La Libertad Avanza did not get a lot of seats in the in either house. So that could be a disadvantage, because that's also determined by the second round of voting and not the third round of voting.
Mm-hmm.
So, he does have an alliance with the PRO, which is a Republican proposal, and then we've got these little independent groups. In a way, it seems like they're kind of the ones who could unofficially be in charge here, since they're all kind of doing their own thing. But the official opposition is larger than the government right now. So it's but yeah, one thing that concerns me is if Milei is able to do all this stuff via executive order, he cuts all these programs. Does that mean the next person can come in and say, "Oh, I reverse everything Milei's done by executive order"? I mean, if it happens that easily, it's kind of,
yes.
Does the president have that much power? It seems like the president does have a lot of power.
So yes, the Constitution allows the president to issue executive orders in some particular cases and in some particular topics. So, for example, he can't issue an executive order on criminal issues, on fiscal issues, on election law issues. But he has a wide range of tools in order to move forward his reforms, at least until 2025. One of those tools is the executive orders, which actually are called urgent and necessary executive orders, which are these special attributions that the president gets. Historically, the Congress can then revoke these executive orders if they get a majority in both chambers to vote it down. But historically, there's never been an executive order revoked by or vetoed by the Congress. Now that there is this executive order that was published or signed last year, there's been some blocks to the implementation of those reforms from a court that has ruled unconstitutional the labor reform included in this executive order, as well as the opposition party, the Union for Homeland. They are looking forward to call for a special meeting in Congress in order to vote down this executive order, which they will probably be able to do this in the Senate, but I'm not really sure about the House of Deputies. What will they be able to do? But he has also some other tools, such as traditional executive orders, which are legislation that has been considered by the Constitution that the president is allowed to put forward. And on the third on a third note, there is what is called reglementary decrees. I don't know if this is like a right translation, but what these decrees do is that, or these acts do, and are signed by the president, is that they regulate all the details and the small letter in the law. So he could be able to implement some reforms through these three instruments. But as you mentioned, it's a weak reform, since it can be, it can be revoked with another executive order. But also, any other law can be revoked with another executive order. So it's not that because if it stems from an executive order, it's weaker than it stems from the law. Maybe it's weaker in the terms of the fundamentals, or the law fundamentals behind the passing of these bills, or these executive orders. But it's part of what is how can I put it, what is stipulated in the Constitution.
Yeah, certainly. So what do you think of what's been done so far? It seems like we had a balanced budget in January, so that's which was apparently the first time. That was just for the month, but that was the first balanced budget month that Argentina's had in 12 years. So it seems like we're making progress there. What do you think is what's been done so far? We've went from 21 federal departments to 9 or something like that, or 21 ministries to 9. And what can you tell us about what's been done so far as cutting the government's has been accomplished?
Well, yes, as you said, cutting the government in half is the first thing he did. Although it's not that he fired half of the public employees in working for government, or that he kind of removed the functions of those offices, but it has been kind of reorganized. So it has cut a lot of government employees, a lot of useless offices. But then still, he still has to go deeper on that aspect. Then he went on to announce what is called the anti-street blockades protocol. So here in Buenos Aires, we used to have, like, every week 2 or 3 street blockades by demonstrators, like in the middle of the main avenue of the city, which crosses from north to south. So it would create a traffic chaos every single week. And with this new protocol, the government was able to stop and prevent the protesters from blocking the streets. So this has been a victory. I would say the clearest victory in these 2 months has been restoring some order in the streets. We've seen some heavy deployment of police forces, maybe exaggerated a bit sometimes, but all in all, that has been a success for Milei's administration in the first month, which particularly was full of protests that were and demonstrations against the Basis Act and the executive order. So yes, that has been a success. Then he moved on to sign this executive order, which generated a lot of discussion and controversies because it touches some special interests, many special interests, I'd say. The most relevant points of this executive order we've been talking about, and I'm going to check now, like, a quick index I found here.
Yes.
So we can go by quickly because it's quite long. It has almost, I'd say, 300 articles in this executive order, and you had another 600 articles in the Basis Act. So that was around 12,000 articles that were passed or tried to pass in the first month of Milei's administration. So the main point of the decree was on one hand, deregulating or applying some reform to labor regulations, such as extending the trial period for employees from 3 months to 8 months. He also allowed people to hire other people without up to 5 employees without having to go through all the bureaucracy and through all the taxes and rates and fees that you have to pay in order to have an employee in Argentina. So that would have facilitated and incentivated the employment of the new job, the creation of new jobs.
We're talking about private sector here. I just want to clarify.
Yes, this is private sector. So
there was all kinds of regulations on employment law that was making it harder for people to, and a lot of people were just, participating in this informal economy, as he's called it. Yeah.
Yes, it's like you save like 40% in taxes when you go through that regime. He also declared essential some services such as education, transportation, hotels, and many other industries, which would restrict the right to strike for unions, in the sense that they have to guarantee a minimum level of service even if there is a strike. He also revoked or repealed customs regulations, such as having to hire an intermediary in order to, or a middleman in order to import something for personal use, for example. The regulation of the yerba mate market, which this is funny because although it might sound uninteresting because it's kind of a niche thing, but in Argentina, where we drink a lot of yerba mate, the famous mate with the straw, there was an institute that would a government-run office that would fix the prices for the mate. So they do, but it would fix like higher prices than market prices in order to protect the mate producers and making mate much more expensive for the rest of the country. So he removed this absurd office. Although now the province has put a similar office in order to keep on regulating the mate price. So there is always a an action, and there's always a reaction, a defensive action from the political case and these people, that the politicians that have been entrenched in power for so long. So the executive order also would implement a lot of reforms in terms of energetic policies, mainly leaving behind the absurd self-supply political goal, the self-supply of energy, and moving forward to criteria that companies should maximize their profit and not should look for self-supply for the country. Yes, there's been some deregulation in the health sector, in the communications sector, in the sports industry, such as allowing football clubs here in Argentina to become private companies, such as in many other countries in the world. So it was a wide-ranging executive order, which is still valid, except from the labor regulation chapter. And I forgot one important thing, that it was the removal of rent control laws. So all the rent regulation is no longer valid, and we've seen in the first 2 months an increase of the of properties that were that came back to the rental market, and it went from some 3,000 to 4,000 properties in the city of Buenos Aires to around 10,000 houses for rent in the city. So you can see there that how it has had a really immediate impact, this deregulation of the rental law.
Oh yes, that's always, and I want to point out too, you mentioned earlier, Milei is not outlawing all protests. There's a nice place called the Plaza de Mayo right in front of the Casa Rosada, which is the pink house where the president lives. Big open space. Anybody can go out there and protest right in front of Milei's house. And as I said, maybe he'll see you, maybe he'll come out and talk to you. Who knows? But they're in fact, Buenos Aires has a lot of places like that where you could go, go out on a courtyard or whatever and just protest there, not blocking any cars at all. Might inconvenience pedestrians a little bit, but it's not disrupting traffic. It's not going to be blocking fire trucks and other emergency vehicles. I have traffic blockers are just, I don't get me started on that one. It's really very interesting seeing the housing. We've talked about the housing. Also, he was I know he also gave an order too that said a lot of the employees had to come to work, and apparently you had employees that were getting paychecks, but they never came to work and never did anything. And now it's like, oh, I got to go into the office, and that's probably been more effective than actually firing employees, because you now make it so undesirable that they just get up and quit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. That's I think demoralization of government employees is a good strategy for reducing the payroll. By a constitutional clause here, there is something that is called the stability of the public or the government employee. So they can't be fired once you are named or assigned to a position, and so you're assigned to a position, you can't be fired. That's included in the constitution of the country. So what you're telling, it was funny because people would arrive to the offices to work after this order of going to the office to work, and they would find that there were like 10 desks in an office, but there were 30 people that had to work in that space. So it shows how no one was really working. Another case, so there was this girl that was interviewed in a bus stop waiting for the bus to come, and they asked her how was she doing with the new government. She said she was sad because she has been fired recently from a ministry. She said they asked her, and so what was your role in the ministry? So she said, I was in access control at the door of the building, and there were like 10 people working at the access control of this building and this door, that you'd only need 1 or 2 person at most. So this has been replicating in every single office, in every single ministry, of an excess of government employees who didn't even work. We call them gnocchi here. I don't know if you heard about that expression.
Yeah, I don't know if we know.
Gnocchi, like the Italian pasta, because we call them like that because here in Argentina, it's a tradition that on the 29th of each month, it's called like the gnocchi day, and it's a tradition to eat gnocchi. So the gnocchi employee would be the gnocchi that only shows up on the 29th to get their salary, and then it would disappear for the rest of the month.
Oh, and of course, we've got a 29th day in February this year, so that'll make it more interesting. Yeah, we're coming up on soon on that. Yeah, so I've also noticed, also recently another thing too is another guy just tweeted out who says tickets paid by the state will no longer be able to accumulate miles. This is on Aerolíneas Argentinas. In 2023 alone, they gave 80 million miles to public employees that were exchanged for 10,000 tickets. Or, that's
the last $1 million
value. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting, since this is an international show, to see what happens with the airport situation, because apparently it's now basically deregulated airlines. So, it's possible that maybe somebody like Avianca or Volaris could move in and set up shop in Buenos Aires, and hey, we're going to do flights in Argentina now. So
absolutely,
there are companies that are actually based elsewhere.
Yeah. So since 2020, we lost a lot of market in the flight industry. Like a lot of airlines left the country. So after the re-regulation of the sector, because back in 2015, Mauricio Macri, he deregulated the the aerospace sector, and a lot of new airlines came to the country, a lot of new routes that flew internally, domestically, and internationally. But after the presidents came back 2019 and with the pandemic, a lot of airlines left the country. So yes, I'm also looking forward to have more airlines and more flights, since we're far from everything, and it's everything so it's very expensive to get anywhere in the world from here.
Yeah, so that'll probably make it easier to get to Argentina. I don't know. Also, what's going to happen with the other transportation markets. Uh, do they have a fairly significant rail industry there and buses, or how's that all work?
So yes, I would say because of distances, airplanes are the best means of transportation. Of course, it's not affordable for everyone in a poor country like this one. So buses are like the stronger, the prime choice when people are choosing how to move from to travel internally. Apart from the car, those who have private car. Regarding the rail industry, Argentina used to have like a very large, extended rail network built in the beginning of the early 20th century by the British, late 19th, early 20th. But it was unsustainable, and most of these rail network has been shut down, um, mainly for passengers. So there's still goods transported by train, but in terms of passengers, it's not really significant. Although if you see the country and if you see the large distances we have here, even within the country, very similar to the United States in this aspect, the best and the most efficient ways of traveling in the country is by airplane. So we need to develop or to generate the conditions in order for this industry to grow.
Yeah, true. I mean, yeah, it seemed like you had a pretty good infrastructure there. I mean, although I wasn't outside of Buenos Aires, but what is it like? For example, if I want to say I want to drive to Rosario or drive to Mendoza from Buenos Aires, I mean, is it pretty good transportation, or is it pretty bad, or are the roads pretty smooth? Are they full of potholes, or that's
Roads are
yeah,
terrible.
yeah,
So I haven't hit the road in a while now, so I don't remember a lot. But probably Buenos Aires, Rosario, which is a big agricultural city. It has a good road, but if you go if you move away from the largest urban centers, or even in large urban centers, you will find a lot of unpaved roads, lots of roads with huge holes in it, with lack of maintenance. So no, I'd say that the state of the roads in Argentina is terrible. There is a famous video that from someone traveling from Chile to Argentina, crossing the Andes, and he would go on a paved, impolluted road until they get to Argentina, and it says "Welcome to Argentina," and immediately starts the earth pavement road.
yeah. That you can see that a lot anywhere. If you go from one state to another, or go from sometimes even one county to another. If you go from one jurisdiction, I assume are things like roads, is that mostly done by the feds, or is that more done at the provincial level?
Well, both of them. The federal government would be in charge of the largest inter-province projects, and then the local projects would be in the hands of the provinces. But in the last decades, the government has been subsidizing a lot of provinces and doing a lot of public works that should have been done by the province. So this is something that Milei is also changing. He says zero public works, and he wanted to privatize all the
Yeah.
public works. So now provinces will have to rely on themselves in order to go on, maintaining the payment and all the provincial infrastructure.
Yeah, that's another thing too. I mean, living in America, I think America is still relatively decentralized compared to a lot of these other countries. I mean, I what other things are still mainly the responsibility of the provinces versus the federal government there?
Well, I say almost a lot of things, such as education, healthcare, um, justice, the province's own justice system. What else? I don't know right now, but I say the federal government takes care, for example, of social security.
Yeah,
Uh, that's at federal level, and then also all the legislation here is federal. So all the civil, so there are local legislation, but there is some federal legislation, such as all the criminal legislation, all the commercial and civil legislation. That's all federal. So there is no competition between her jurisdictions. Um, in terms of, for example, I don't know, drug regulation, uh, yeah, I say labor regulations, and a lot of stuff that it's uniform for the whole country.
yeah. In the U.S., you still have a lot of things that are regulated. I mean, you have rent control set by cities. You might have laws regarding rents and landlords. Mostly at the state level. There's still a lot of stuff that's done at the states instead of at the larger federal government here in America. Uh, you know, how much can the provinces defy Milei, or can they defy the feds, or is that pretty hard for them to do? Because we're
Well,
definitely getting into some crises in America. I think where a lot of states are now saying to the federal government, "We're not doing this."
yeah, well, you just there's just been a standoff between a governor of a province and the federal government, which back last Friday, this so last week, um, Milei decided to also remove all the subsidies for transportation for provinces. So
Yeah,
the federal government has assumed, as I told you before, a lot of functions that were part of the provincial government. So now he's giving the functions back to the provincial government. So he withdrew all the subsidies for transportation, and there was one governor in the south, in the province called Chubut, who, apart from uh, not getting these subsidies, he was retained some money that the federal government had to send to this province. So the federal government would collect taxes, and then it has to distribute part of these taxes to the provinces. So, because this province had a debt with the government retained some $13 million from this distribution of funds, of taxes funds. So the government of Chubut said, because of if you don't give me back my $13 million, I will cut all the production and the transportation of oil and gas in the Patagonia. And immediately all the governors of the other 23 provinces joined this guy, threatening to cut the supply of oil and gas for the country. So this is a new development that happened just the past few days. So, and it has not arrived to an end this story. So we have to see the next days what's going to happen. The government said that on Wednesday they will apply. They will. Is the deadline for the government to return this money. So we'll see what happens.
yeah. Do a lot of the provincial budgets? Do they get a lot of? Are they really dependent on the feds, or do they still collect some of their own taxes?
No, so they would collect their own taxes, and particularly provinces like Chubut that have oil and gas production, they also get royalties for the exports of oil and gas. But what happened during the last I don't know, 10, 15 years was that the government was subsidizing a lot of provinces. So provinces would have a balanced budget because the government would have uh, sent all these money transfers. Now, what the government is doing is putting a stop to all these money transfers, who, of course, were funded by inflation, by debt. So now it's the other side of the coin. You have provinces that have to make budget cuts and have to balance their budgets, and they are not willing to do it as they expect. As they expect government handovers. And let me tell you one more thing about this province Chubut, who has been defined the federal government. This province is seated literally over a gold mine called the Project Navidad, which is a gold mine. It's one of the largest reservoirs of gold in the country, and there is a law banning mining and banning gold mining. So they're sitting in literally a mine of gold, and they are asking for $13 million to the federal government. It's ununderstand. It can't be understood.
Yeah, there's been some. We've certainly heard some news about Chubut. What's been going on there? Is that largest, the largest oil producing region province in Argentina? Yes, so that's Chubut is way down south. Not
In the Patagonia.
yeah, not a yeah. It's a large. It goes south.
Yes, it's one of the main oil producers. I think Neuquén is the largest one, which is a neighbor of Chubut. But yes, Chubut is a province full of natural resources, which they are not exploiting it. So we are a province rich in resources, but not really rich, because resources are still underground or on the sea. They're not taking advantage of them.
Yeah. So I noticed there was some the oil. There's a lot of resources down there though too. So you certainly have a lot of potential to sell these resources and get
So
them out of here.
recently, Chubut suffered like $130 million of shrimp was spoiled because of a union measure. So
Yeah.
it's like provinces don't like production. They don't like creating wealth. They are much more. It's more as a self-preservation project for politicians. Like I'm doing whatever in order to stay to keep the power, to stay in power. I don't really. They don't really care about long-term views, middle-term views. They just want short-term cash in order to keep people happy, and that's all.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's also boundaries are defined by the lines of latitude, 42 south and 46 south. So yeah, Santa Cruz is to the south and Rio Negro is to the north. So, but yeah, so this is a pretty interesting situation. I mean, does Argentina still have the export taxes? I mean, because you're still it was a case where you actually had to pay a tax to send things out. So if I want to send the oil, and of course, which is what's going to happen is nobody's going to bother sending anything out.
Yeah, so actually part of the Basis Act that was rejected by Congress included some increase in these export taxes in order to balance budget, which I don't think it's the best solution, but probably is the only solution at this point. So these taxes remain for agricultural products, for industrial products, and they will remain for the short term. For the short term, I believe. But what probably we're going to see in the next months, probably before July, is a removal of all the capital controls to get foreign currency here in the country. So we will be moving forward towards a unification of the exchange rate before moving forward to the removal of these export taxes.
That's a good question too. Speaking of exchange rates, how is that working now? I mean, let's say last September, what would $1 American get me in what would $1 get me now, as far as pesos? I'm talking about pesos.
Yeah, so we have the official exchange rate and the black market exchange rate,
Yeah.
which is the real exchange rate. So in September, $1 was 350 pesos at the official exchange rate, and probably around 800, 900 pesos the real exchange rate. So there was a gap of around 200% between the official exchange rate and the black market, or the free market exchange rate. Now that gap has reduced to only a mere 20%. Although we've seen a really a spark of inflation, of really high inflation this past 2 months, because of all of the adjustment of prices that were previously regulated,
Yes.
such the healthcare, such transportation, such communications, etc. So there's been first month, December was 25% of inflation only in December. January went down to 20%, which is still like almost hyperinflation. And projections show that February inflation will be around 15%, probably closer to 10 than 15. But what we've seen these days is that while inflation has gone crazy, the dollar has remained steady, which is a good thing because it shows that the government, the peso has remained steady. The government, this shows like the market shows confidence for the government program. But at the same time, because of the US dollar remains steady and there's been a lot of price increases in pesos, now everything is more expensive in US dollars. Argentina used to be the cheapest country in the world for anyone who came with US dollars. So we are returning to have more normal prices, like world prices, global prices. Problem right now is that the last price to adjust are always wages, salaries. So people are here feeling the heat of all these economic mess that left the previous government, and we are going through the toughest part of the recession, I say. March and April, but particularly March, because school classes start again here in Argentina, and they have all these expenses related to go to school, and there is a lot of there's going to be some transportation tickets, the fares update. So we're going to see like the worst months for not in terms of the indicators. If you look at the indicators, macroeconomic indicators are all improving. Problem is that people is feeling now and is getting the impact of the recession. But I think that probably in June, July, we're going to be talking about a different scenario.
Yeah, it's cool. You get to have Christmas in the summertime down there.
Yeah.
I can imagine. I can imagine. I can imagine Christmas in South America. I've heard people talk about it. And it's just absolutely fantastic to have Christmas down there. I hate snow. I don't want to see snow. It has nothing to do with Christmas as far as I'm concerned anyway. Yeah, so you got people going back to school. It's that should be interesting too. I know sometimes. Do you think people right now? What is the mood of the public? Do they realize that a lot of these issues right now are really the fault of the past government, or are they now saying, "Oh, get Milei out of here. Look at all these problems he's causing"?
Well, I'd say for the time being, people is open to put up with all this chaos. They've seen, and I think most of them understand that all these are the consequences of previous policies that the previous government implemented. Although there is a strong opposition and a very intense opposition from the Peronist party, which is I won't say it's like a large group of people, but it's a very vocal group of people. So sometimes you get the perspective that they are much more than what they really are. But I'd say the common citizen, the one that goes to work every day, that has no strong political inclinations, and voted for Milei, he's still he's still like supporting him and tolerating all this economic mess. But there's one point that patience runs out. So I say that if maybe then if we don't see results, start seeing results this first part of the year, first semester, then next semester could get a bit spicier.
Yeah.
But for the time being, I don't see that as a problem.
Well, also we hope that some good things happen, so he might get some more seats in the Chamber of Deputies in the Senate in the next election, or at least La Libertad Avanza would. I mean, that would help matters. I mean, Adam, I got to ask though, how much do you think, how much do you think Milei's attitude is helping here? I mean, when Kirchner was walking out after leaving office, she held up her middle finger and was basically giving that to the whole public. Milei goes out on the regular airlines. He takes selfies with people. And this is something a lot of libertarians don't unfortunately are guilty of. Milei likes people. He likes to go out there. He's on the airline. Of course, you got nothing better to do when you're on the airline anyway, so you might as well take selfies. But he seems very approachable, very accessible, and I think that's how much of a difference do you think that is making? Just the fact that he's, to me, this is the difference between a president and a king. A president flies on the regular airlines. A king doesn't.
Well, I say this closeness to the people. It has, I know it has favored him. And all these, what you were mentioning, that he's flying in official business, but through regular airlines, and that he's not using the helicopter to go from the Casa Rosada to his home, and the point that he has suspended and, for example, increased the prices of the restaurant inside Casa Rosada, inside the seat of government. I say these are all symbolic gestures that give him more time, because if people see that he's a regular guy, a person that has that this in the end it has a similar lifestyle, at least what is he shows, than the regular people, than the common citizen, and they will feel more relatable to the president, and maybe give him more time. But I say I don't know how to classify his style right now, his very confrontational style, and opening flanks every single day. He's opening new flanks with new adversaries, and this has shocked politicians, and they have lost any power to respond. They are confused, they are dazzled right now because of Milei's style. So I think it's a good thing. I mean, he's not a technocrat. He's not the Cato Institute type of libertarian that would go with speak very academically and trying to be moderate and not to offend anyone. He's not like that, and I think that's the appeal. I mean, Milei is a whole package. We won't be able to have he's a bit crazy, quite crazy, but we wouldn't be able to have a libertarian president without all the other things that came with him. I mean, we tried to run for office back 10 years ago, and not even newspaper would wanted to interview us. So it's not because, in the end, it's not because of the ideas, it's because of his character and the ideas.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things there. I mean, but aren't most of us in the libertarian movement pretty crazy, and aren't most of and isn't anybody who goes into politics a little bit crazy too? It's it certainly has a lot of it can seem like it has a lot. You get a lot of criticism, and you don't really get anybody acknowledging what you're doing right. What can you say about some of his cabinet and people on his, like Victoria Villarreal or Deanna Mondino or Patricia Bullrich, who at the time, I was not very positive about, but she's seems to be becoming an ally, and she was actually came up to Washington D.C. with Milei as well. So what do you got to say about all those people in Milei's cabinet or staff?
Well, in my opinion, Patricia Bullrich is the worst one. I think she's a drug warrior. She's not very intelligent person, I'd say. I mean,
Who?
Patricia Bullrich, I don't like.
Yeah.
I mean, I see that they need to restore order in the streets, but I don't like her drug warrior policy and some support for police immunity and things that we libertarians don't like. Most conservatives like that better. But I understand that this is not a pure libertarian government, but this is an alliance between libertarians and conservatives.
Does Milei get elected without Bullrich?
I think so. He would, because people was open to support anyone but the Peronists. So, and that's a bit the thinking of Milei in the end, that when he was forming the government, he said in the end that, well, actually, thank you for your support to the Pro Party, which Patricia Bullrich is a member of. But I think I would have done this by myself as well. So I don't need you in my cabinet. So Patricia Bullrich she has shown some success with this anti-street blockades protocol. But in general terms, I don't like her. I think most of the cabinet members. Let me try to think. They're quite regular politicians. There's no one special there that would have like a special character like Milei, or being hardcore libertarians like Milei. But they are, aligned with his ideas and with his program. So I think that's the important thing.
Well, it sounds like Diana Mondino is very much a libertarian based on what I've been reading about her. And I figure I'll never get Milei, and I know she's fluent in English. She's at the top of my list of people to bring on this show. At least people in Milei's cabinet, because I've heard nothing but great things about her. Bullrich, of course, is an interesting case because she was at one point probably out there blocking the streets, but she's definitely got an interesting career in life here. What do you think about Vija Ruel or some of these others that are in the cabinet?
Well, again, for example, Vija Ruel, I don't like her conservative positions, but I'd say that far he has done a good job in Congress. Vice President here, I think it's the same in the United States. It's the president, it's the chair of the Senate. So she was able to do some legislative plays in order to get control of the chamber, or at least don't leave the control up for the Peronists. But it's a very ceremonial. It's a very ceremonial position, the vice president, like in the U.S. Actually, Milei promised Vija Ruel to give her the security and the defense ministries, but in the end, he ended up reaching an agreement with Bullrich. So she was left with nothing, and that kind of strained the relationship, according to media reports. You don't need to take those by as if they were the real truth, but they say that the relationship is not that good right now, because she also has some political ambitions, and she has been showing some political ambitions, such as having her own logo type during the campaign. So that's her own distinctive or sign that would identify her. Yes. So yes, there's been some noise in that relationship, but it's always the cases here in Argentina. Always the vice president and the president can't see each other after a couple of months in office. So we're used to that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Is there anybody you really like in the cabinet right now?
Not really someone that I would highlight. I think Francos, which is the interior ministry, and the good cop. If Milei was the bad cop, Franco's is the good cop that would negotiate with governors, and is much more a political person. I think he has been having a good balance between putting forward libertarian ideas and at the same time, dealing with all these political cases that are always ready to block and impede and obstruct. So, but I wouldn't like Caputo is doing a good job. I mean, the Ministry of Economy. He has, as I told you, the peso remains steady. He's disarming all these regulations and bureaucracy in the banking and the financial sector. Although, if you measure him with a libertarian meter, he probably won't pass that test. But at the same time, I think we are right now in such a unique situation that they need to stabilize the economy, and I don't really know how to stabilize the economy, like leaving it to the market, in the sense that it will stabilize, but it will have to go through liquidation process, hyperinflation, disorder process. So all in all, if we put it in context, Caputo, the economy minister, is doing a good job.
Yes. Yeah, that's Luis Caputo, the Minister of the Economy, who has been an economist, and he was also president of the central bank. That's interesting. So you got a former president of the central bank working for a president once. He was also Minister of Finance under Macri. He was somewhat of a free market, past president. So that should be interesting. Yeah. Oh, he's got Massa's job too. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
That's a good question. What is Massa doing now?
So Massa is writing a book right now, but he's writing a book, and he's going to write about how businessmen ask him for privileges, he said. But now the most relevant thing is that he started working for a hedge fund called Greylock Capital, an American hedge fund, which is funny because they were part of the holdouts back in 2014, I think, when the government was having judicial troubles with some holdout creditors of the sovereign debt. So he's now working for them. Which is strange because Massa doesn't even speak English, so I don't know how he would work. Probably in Latin America.
Well, I just wonder. It was just something that popped into my head. What's going on with Sergio Massa after losing that election? He didn't even look like he wanted to win the election. I mean, he always looked so tense and uptight during the debates. It was kind of funny to watch. And of course, one thing I also like to talk about is the fact that Milei, almost upon becoming president, immediately canceled Alberto Fernandez's security team. Fernandez wanted to have a security team walking around with him for the rest of his life. Milei said, "No, you're not getting it. Tough luck."
So Fernandez moved to Spain after leaving the presidency, and because of current regulations, he has to have a security team following him everywhere. So now the country has to send every week a different team of security officers in order to keep his custody in Spain. So yes, I'm not sure what were the changes about. I think it was another executive order that Milei signed that said that, I think that, I'm not sure what he said now. I'm trying to remember. But I think that it would limit the detail to the president, only the former president and not his family, or something like that. I'm not sure right now. But yes, he made some changes in that area as well.
Yeah, so that should be interesting. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting where are they now story of the people who are part of this very interesting saga. It's been interesting too. Milei has now visited several people. What do you think? What do you think is going to come out of his? He visited Giorgia Meloni and talked to her in Italy, and I realize now, that was probably a good move because Argentina has a large number of Italian immigrants, or at least descendants of Italian immigrants. And of course, he shook hands with the Pope. I mean, what do you make of all this? The visits, and of course, he went to Israel.
So he is marking a departure from the foreign policy that the previous administration had. He has fully aligned with the United States foreign policy. I'd say for two reasons. One, because he believes it. So, and the second one is because we need IMF money. So we need to be in good terms with the US. And in the case of Israel, I say the same. He believes in Israel's right to defend itself, and he is he's willing to convert to Judaism after his presidency, his tenure. So he's very pro-Israel. He's very pro-USA. He left the BRICS, so Argentina was invited to join the BRICS alliance, and he rejected it. Although I'd say that I don't like that Milei, and this is why I don't like Mondino a lot. It's because she's obsessed with I think in English is the OCDE, or the Organization of European Cooperation. I don't remember the initials in English.
Office of Clean Office of Organization for Economic Development.
Yeah. So this is a European organization that sets standards for countries in order to access, grants and consultancy and things. So the government is moving towards complying with these regulations, as well as the Foreign Action Task Force regulations, which are completely against financial privacy, against individual rights. So I don't like that process of integration towards these multilateral organisms. Although it's like a long path until Argentina joins the Organization for Economic Cooperation. So there's still hope that he would change on that issue. But then, yes, I say one of my criticism is that he will probably sign another executive order which will put Argentina in compliance with the Foreign Action Task Force regulations that would, for example, impose a travel rule for example, for crypto transactions. So if you want to withdraw money from a crypto exchange, from a local crypto exchange, you would have to state who is the owner of that address that you are withdrawing to. So I think that's really terrible, and that will be like one of the first blunders of Milei's government in terms of judging his libertarianism.
Diana Mondino was actually a speaker at the Latin American Bitcoin conference last year. So you think Milei could actually not be favorable to crypto and Bitcoin? Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean, he's complying with the Foreign Action Task Force in order to avoid Argentina getting into what is so-called gray list of countries that are non-compliant. This will harm the privacy of Argentinians, definitely. Milei is pro currency competition. He's pro Bitcoin. He's pro crypto, although he doesn't understand Bitcoin a lot. But this is like one step in the wrong direction. But it's because of international pressure, mainly.
Well, one thing is some of my libertarian friends have pointed out in America is if you're in another country in the Western Hemisphere and you say too many bad things about the USA, there's always the possibility that you might find regime change in your country. We're not above doing that. I mean, whether it be collaborating with overthrowing governments in Mexico or overthrowing governments in Nicaragua or wherever. I mean, I think and of course you want to be on. When you're president, you want to be on good terms, with the biggest countries in the world, no matter how bad they are. You just, because you can't really, I mean, there's no way Argentina can just ignore the U.S. In that sense, they can't really ignore Russia or China either. They're there, and you got to deal with them because they're there.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
but I think that he could have done something. I mean, just
yeah,
not submitting to the demands of the foreign action, the
yeah.
FATF, and I don't know, putting a show or something that will at least expose what they are asking him to do.
There's also this realization that you might need some foreign investment to get out of some of these problems too. Somebody's got to buy the oil, somebody's got to buy the food. Because it sounds like Argentina could be a major exporter of oil and a major exporter of food. And considering all that, you, at least on paper, you should have a country that's going to be very well off if you can import all that, export or send all that stuff out and get money for it.
Yeah, definitely. Direct foreign investment is going to be needed, and it's been stagnant over the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, stagnance just made it harder for people to deal.
That's the only way to raise wages, having more capital injected into the economy.
Of course, he has taken some shots at Petro in Colombia and Maduro in Venezuela, and they've certainly taken shots at him too. So that's but he probably can't ignore those two. But at the same time, there's also this. Who knows? They might try to fund some terrorists or something in Argentina to stir the pot down there, since they having already messed up their own countries.
Oh yeah, probably, particularly Venezuela. Yeah, and don't forget about Lula. Brazil is the president of Brazil. Lula. He is Brazil is the largest commercial partner of Argentina. So they won't have a good relationship the next 4 years. But we'll see what happened there in regional terms. If Milei is going to take the leadership from Brazil, from Lula, and not particularly that the United States is supporting Milei a lot. We had Anthony Blinken come here last week, and there's a lot of U.S. officials that come every single week to speak with officials here, because they want to make Milei a regional leader. In contrast with Lula, who has upset the U.S. lately.
Yeah, well, Lula's kind of somewhat of a communist, so it's really going to be. But it's you have a border with the country, you got to deal with them. When you have a border with them, they're a huge country, and of course and then they love their soccer there too. So that's. One thing I should have asked you earlier, I forgot to ask you. I heard Bullrich's endorsement was actually very good at bringing in the demographic of middle-aged older women like Bullrich. Do you think that helped, or do you think that helped Milei and he got that vote because of the Bullrich endorsement?
Well, I say yes, not only because Bullrich voters are part of this demographic of older people. As Milei tends to attract younger people, but also because now Milei has positioned himself as a change, as a real reform candidate, and the other party, PRO, has lost identity. They have been diluted by Milei, because they both target the same electoral group, those anti-Peronist, anti-Kirchneristas. So I'd say that first, Bullrich supporting Milei has and endorsing Milei attracted a lot of people to see Milei in a different eyes. And on the other hand, Bullrich voters, after seeing what Milei is doing, they starting to like him more and probably vote him in the next midterm elections. And let me add one more thing. In this standoff that we commented before between Chubut province and Buenos Aires, the governor of Chubut is from the same party that Patricia Bullrich. So this has harmed as well Patricia Bullrich's party, because now they're positioning themselves, or at least a part of the party is positioning itself as a strong and opposition to Milei, and as a blocker as a change blocking province or administration. So I think all the factors are getting aligned in order for Milei to have a good performance in 2025 and finally be able to move forward all these bills that haven't passed yet or that have been rejected.
Adam, one thing else too is I wanted to cover is how much of a difference do you think Milei has made on the educational front? I mean, is he really changing the culture and the attitude of the country that free markets are good? And I think he's really been a great ambassador for all these things, and we really need them. And especially when this has been a very dark time for liberty. It's I've said he's the equivalent of the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia for capitalism, and I really think that might be the case here. I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, maybe we'll see 100 years of Mileism.
Well, I think that yes, definitely he had a really big impact on people, particularly the young people. And I can compare this being a libertarian before being libertarian was cool in Argentina. We used to be always the same 20, 40, 50 people going to the events. And we know each other, and we will know who would attend what event and who wouldn't, and etc. etc. And now it has growth exponentially. The people that knows about Austrian economics, that understands the principles of a libertarian philosophy, that even if they are not full-fledged libertarians, they have been exposed to something completely different. Like imagine living in a country that imagine that you have lived in a jail throughout all your life, and that's the only thing you know. So you would be able, like you would have thought that you have one jail guard and the other jail guard, and you had to choose between who was the better one. And now they have shown you, hey, there is a window there. You can look. There's another alternative outside, and you don't have to choose a jail guard. So a lot of people has been exposed to this kind of thought, and I think it's already transforming. It has already transformed the Argentine society, at least a part of it, because it has created this core of libertarian or liberty-oriented people that was almost non-existent before Milei. Before Milei, it was just, as I told you, like 40, 50 people that we would know each other in the events. And even before 2009, the average age of the typical attendant of a libertarian event was 85 years old. So Milei has rejuvenated the libertarian movement as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I definitely think there's some good things here, and it sounds like to me too. He's not just getting attention in Argentina; he's getting attention all over South America. I saw his book on sale in the airport in Peru. I mean, this could be huge. I really think South America has a chance to save Western civilization, because you still take families seriously. The men are men, the women are women. I mean, you don't see men going into the women's rooms or stuff like that. It still seems like it's still very much at a good place where you can still salvage all that. I don't know where America is going to go, but I'm not optimistic about America at all. That's why one of the reasons why I've taken so much interest in all this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's already making global impact. I mean, everyone. I mean, I've been following the press and the international press. And Milei appears every week in important newspapers all around the world, and that's not normal for an Argentine president who people barely know that the country exists. So he has become a global leader for libertarians. Libertarians, conservatives, right-wing people. This mix that has now Milei has achieved to put around him, but he wants himself. So if you see what he's doing, he wants to position himself as a global leader as well. He would go to CPAC. He has a very active international agenda. So yes, I think Milei is looking forward to gain world fame.
I hope he can have an influence on some of these other people too. It could be profound. It's it's been great talking to you. Have anything else to say before we go?
No, but I mean, next months are going to be, first they're going to feel like years, but they're going to be fun to be watching.
Yeah.
What's going to happen.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch what's going to happen too. Yeah, I'm very excited about that. So yes, and thank you, Adam Dubove, and I'm Chris Baker. Please like the channel, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and we're on all different platforms, and go buy my novel Escape from the Village. I'm Chris Baker, and we're out.